pressing records. I don't press records, I cut them. Press is when you mass produce them. But every record that's ever been made starts with something similar to this. Nicer gear generally, but this is a new machine that I bought in Germany. I remember I told you that I didn't get the funding and so I begged, borrow, install, and I found these makers in Germany. It's called a vinyl recorder. They make everything from scratch, all the components and mechanism they fabricate, but they're very eccentric.
That's beautiful.
Whereabouts in Germany, Ted?
In near the Swiss border.
Oh, okay.
About 70 kilometers from where my father lived.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
And near Kempten down there.
Okay.
The instructions were drive 3 hours south of Munich. When you get to the town of Holy Church, go over the train tracks, take it right down the dirt road. We're in the barns at the end of the dirt road and bring cash. Which was, so it was a bit of a quest. I'm glad I did it. They won't sell it to you unless you go there and learn from them because they don't want to be bothered by people going, it's not working properly.
Yeah.
But it was fun. They paid for the beer and stuff. Normally, you would cut on a dub plate or an acetate that could withstand a molding process. So it's usually made out of metal with some kind of lacquer on the top. Those aren't meant to be played, they're meant to be molded. So they say you can only get 25, 30 plays out of it before you start to hear degradation. I cut onto these things, it's a PVC plastic. It's technically polyvinyl chloride. It's not the same chemical makeup as the softer vinyl, but I think these are great. This will last you forever. Just don't leave it in the backseat of your Camaro on a hot summer day and it'll get warped. I mean,
I'm getting a motorcycle.
Or on the front of her motorcycle.
The great thing about vinyl is if you drop it, you can still play it and you just have that authentic scratchy sound, which I was playing a record in here and someone was like, how'd you get that vinyl sound? Because it's a vinyl record.
Because it really is.
This machine isn't like the Neumann cabinet lathe that all your favorite records were cut on, but it's I can get hi-fi recordings. So I had to decide when I began this odyssey whether or not to go like the old school Alan Lomax way. He used this thing called the Presto 6N, which was a semi-portable thing. I mean, the battery for it was in the back of a station wagon. But you can get, that's generally mono recordings, and this is going to be a stereo hi-fi recording of you. So it's going to be nice.
Thank you.
So I get to clear because I think it's magical.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm going to put this down.
That's what I say. I want a transparent vinyls.
Some of these records are a little misshapen. So this is a lock ring to lock the record down so it doesn't move while I'm cutting it. These are heat lamps. We try to get the surface up to about 105 degrees, which isn't that hot. It's not like cake icing, but it does help the cutting process. And I don't know where my trusty rag is.
Or sauce.
You have napkins if you want.
So I haven't been here in a week, so I'm just hoping this is gonna work. But there are gremlins in this building. Sometimes it gets out of calibration, so hopefully we'll get it right on the first cut. But I might have to do a couple of cuts to get it back to where
That's
I
okay.
want it. So we're gonna cut a record, and then you guys will decorate a cover for me that lives here, and then we'll cut a second record that you will take with you.
Cool.
So it's heating. I got an oil on it. Now, how does it work? This is the beautiful. So we just recorded 2 really beautiful songs by them. How long? 2 hours so far? We're 2
Yeah.
hours into it. Here's one of them. All the way up, right? But that's how loud it sounds. This is the cutter head. This is the heart and the beating heart of the operation. And I'm going to do a little drawing. It's probably better if you guys come around to this side. That way I can...
You can come over here.
So this is where the magic happens right here. It's called the cutter head. It's 2 speakers. a left speaker and a right speaker, so stereo pair. And they're capped with these black cones, airtight cones. That's why this sounds quiet, even though it's 300 watts turned all the way up. And these focus all the vibration to a rod, which meets the rod from the stereo pair. And then at the tip is a diamond. A high quality diamond that is just vibrating to sound waves.
Oh, whoa.
So, as we all know, sound travels in wave form. So a high frequency wave, which is a high pitched note, like a flute, is a high frequency wave, and a low bass note is a low frequency wave. That's what a groove is. It's just a seismic etching of waveforms. So I did a really fun experiment, which I talked about doing for 10 years but never did. And I cut a record where on the outer edge is a high frequency wave, like a dog whistle, so like barely audible. And then as I cut, I turn it down to a sub-frequency.
Oh, nice.
And you can literally, with the naked eye, this is why I like the clear records. I'll give you guys this
Oh,
so
whoa.
you can see it. You can see the waves open.
That is. Oh my god.
So what's the range, like hertz-wise? 20.
Vinyl hates everything below 70 and above like 2700, which is interesting because you get, here, you can pass it around. So, if you look at a graphic EQ, this is just, bass, middle, treble. Vinyl loves this frequency spectrum, like a nice bell curve. You'll hear it, it tends to shave off this stuff. Now there's a reason why. You're thinking about a physical vibration, right? So volume is a bit of an enemy, because if you think about volume in terms of wave amplitude, if I'm trying to cut a high frequency wave really loud, I'm turning up the wave amplitude, and the needle has to track through that. At a certain point, it'll jump like a serpentine river overflowing its banks. I like to talk about this. This is the point where I'm stalling while this heats up. We're doing good. We got a little ways to go. This is homemade wine, not urine samples. This is this.
Yeah, I was
sure,
like, what
Ted.
is that? I thought that it was like some dressing.
Sometimes I just don't want to leave the station, Now, there's an Irish musician that he's a recidivist. He's done like 5 of these. And he always brings me homemade wine. They're really good.
Oh, nice.
So on the 15th, we're having a closing party, and I'll crack these. You guys are welcome to come to that. So I feel like we're at a point now in our culture where no one is actually listening to anybody or anything. People have entrenched political positions, this divisiveness. No one's actually listening to the other side. But we're also not thinking about what we're putting in our ears. We do organic food, keto, diet, all these things. We're always thinking about what we're putting in our mouths, but we're never thinking about what we're putting in our ears. MP3s and MP4s are the worst
I agree, yeah.
quality. It's the lowest possible file format for memory's sake. Compressed and thrown away. If I try to cut an MP3 with an MP3 player, you hear it distortion. And that's going in our ears, and not only are we listening to bad file formats, but we're listening to them with these earbuds that we bought at Dwayne Reed because we left our nice parrot at the airport or whatever. So there's studies being shown, Neil Young's a huge champion of this, that it's actually doing damage to us psychically somehow, this filling our ears with this low-level distortion. But it also is in stark contrast to the vinyl frequency spectrum that everybody says they like the sound of vinyl. It's not really a hipster pose. It's actually like an EQ choice in a way. I mean, you can tune it however you want with your preamp and all that stuff. But like generally vinyl likes this. Spotify, which we all listen to, and thank God for it because I can learn about new music. But I feel like it's being mastered to sound big on small speakers. To sound bigger on small speakers.
Yeah.
Computer speakers, cell phone speakers, earbuds. So how do you make something big, sound big on a small setup? You jack the bass, and then you scoop out the mid because it becomes muddy, and add detail It's not this dramatic, but vinyl to me makes a lot more sense. You know. Also, you know, with the limitations of analog recording, volume, cutting, this sort of thing, it forced people to think dynamically. Once digital recording came and you could record louder and below 70, you know, sub frequencies, you know, make people really have an accident in the break in the dance club, which is, you know, it's good if you're doing drugs. You know, if you look at music that was recorded, especially in the late 90s, like Limp Bizkit or something, and music now, it's slammed against the ceiling and the floor.
I think they quoted the Red Hot Chili Peppers as the loudest, you know, subjectively loudest record.
Yeah, there's a lot
Start
of.
the loudness.
There's a really great.
Really?
There's a really great book called
like
Perfecting
vinyl.
Sound Forever. I highly recommend it. And it talks about the loudness wars of these two radio stations in New York, where obviously you're gonna, if you're turning the dial, you're gonna pick the louder station because it's coming in louder. So they started to break the decorum of like what loud was. But digital made it possible for us to go louder too. But like, whereas if you look at like a Neil Young record, which, you know, Harvest is one of my favorite analog. It's at the height of analog recording. It's got peaks and valleys. It's like dynamics. So this is what we're putting into our ears with low quality file formats. It's just trash and junk. And I don't know why. I think it's a metaphor for just culture in general. Like,
Yeah.
why don't we think about our ears like we think about our stomachs? I don't know. So part of my mission is to just remind people of that because I think it's really important. I also feel like synesthesia, like as an artist, like I found the way to stop time. Like my goal is always to stop time a little bit. That's as an artist because our culture is just a tumult of information buffeting you at all the time. You can barely. We're all OCD. We're barely like, you know, we're thinking about texting while we're texting someone else or while we're looking at a website and all
While
this.
we're driving.
So like I feel like a good art piece stops time. I'm not talking about like for an hour. I'm talking about a nanosecond. That's all. I'm not greedy. I just want but
A little pause. Yeah.
but I found that through synesthesia, visualization of sound, that you can get people's attention. Whereas like a rhetorical, like a painting on the wall, like you look at it. I've seen people walk in the gallery that I'm the director of on their cell phone, take one step in and take one step out. I mean, that's not good. Like, how do you get people to engage
Drive
more?
by.
So I find that synesthesia is a great way to do that. So talking about your senses, talking about eating sound, digesting sound, all those things is successful. You can be successful and engage people. Anyway, so I've stalled, and I think we're probably close.
Does that like little wire just go out on its own?
The witch wire.
That little thing.
Oh, so yeah, good. I'm glad you saw that. So when the diamond starts etching, it excavates a single strand of the inverted sound, the inverted groove. Right?
Oh, I see.
So I need to contend with that because it can mess up your cut. So I have a vacuum, which is over there. The reason it's not closer to the cutter head is because if you threw all this stuff out, and we can do an experiment if you guys want, without any amplification, if we make a 300 watt or louder noise in the room, it'll cut it. So just a diamond vibrating to sound can etch sound onto an object without amplification.
How is it like how is it making the I don't know, like how the diamond
Well,
how
they-
the diamond.
How the diamond vibrates?
Like, yeah, well, like why the diamond? Like why that specific rock? Or the other rock?
Well, just because it's sharp and hard. No, if you
Oh.
you can have diamond doesn't lose its
Oh, okay,
edge,
okay.
and it just starts to move. So you'll see it. You'll see it move.
So it's a single cutter head.
Yeah, well, it's stereo, but yeah.
So so are there two parallel grooves?
No, it's the left and the right and the up and the down.
So how does it break it back into stereo when the style is
when this,
Is it merging it into one root?
yeah, this is starting to move. We're ready. I drop the needle down really slowly and nice and quiet and gentle. There you go. So we're now cutting. I do a lead out. Cue the music. Oh, it started with the other song.
Okay.
So my record will have the other song.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what's going in. Now the cool thing about the Germans' design is because they're building everything from scratch, they had no interest in creating the motor and the platter and all these things. So they use this chassis, which a lot of lathes you'll find mount on turntables, but they use the Technics 1200, which is one of the greatest products of my lifetime. I used to DJ in the East Village, and you could spill 100 beers on it and it would still work. But you can use the tone arm of the turntable and demo the cut just by switching the playback. So this is the vinyl record. Turn it up a little. So there's a slight delay from
course.
here to there.
Yeah.
So you can hear that bell curve now, and the way I describe it is it's like you're taking clay right before you throw a pot and you form that mound, but it pushes like the mid-range instruments up, so her voice is louder, the guitars are louder. The bass is still in there, and what I do is like the old cutters, if you're cutting for a big vinyl release, you're trying to get it to sound as much like the master as possible, but I don't do that because like I want to give you a serviceable wave file and a serviceable record, so I split the difference. So sometimes the waves are a little bit tubby, but that's because I want to keep the bass in the...
Yeah, they call it the RIAA curve, right?
Yeah. So I don't want to... I'm splitting the difference. So again, I'm not a professional engineer and I'm not a professional record cutter. I'm just an artist with this burning urge to share this with you. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn good.